Hey everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Eryn Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's podcast, I am doing a solo episode here today without Dr. Eryn. She's pretty busy. We just traveled to our friend's destination wedding in Jamaica. We just got back, so she's packed with a ton of work. I'd figure I'd do this one. It'd be a quicker one. Plus, both still trying to get over a sickness that we've been dealing with for a while, and now our puppy is a little sick. He has a respiratory infection. He's got like snot coming out of his nose and stuff. But anyway, I digress. Jamaica was absolutely amazing. My first time there. And I got to be honest with you, that jerk chicken was probably my favorite stuff out there. Did not know about the jerk seasoning like that. And it's absolutely amazing. Had a great time. A lot of sun. Got pretty burnt. But yeah, I had a really, really good time in Jamaica. A lot of nice people. But now it's back to this reality, which is one reality that I love. Because all of you allow me to do that, which is live my passion, which is help people with nutrition. So let's dive into this episode a little bit. And it's more or less just like some thoughts that I had. And, you know, when dealing with a ton of clients over the last, 13 years, and then some clients still having, like you still encounter some of the same stuff over and over and over again. So I feel like getting this message across is really, really going to resonate with a lot of people. And it really comes down to stop being afraid to measure things, right? Like a lot of people are afraid of the scale and measuring their weight there because they feel like it could be very negative or toxic. A lot of people don't want to measure their food because it could be very toxic, or measure their calories that they're consuming because it's toxic. The problem with that is that you literally cannot manage what you do not measure, right? So if you're not measuring where you're currently at in this situation, how do you have any idea of where you actually need to go, right? The best analogy for this is think of it like a GPS system, right? In order for you to have any sense of direction, the first thing is the GPS needs to know your location, needs to know where you're at in order to find the best route for your destination. That goes hand in hand with anything that you really want to do in life. But for this podcast's purposes, let's talk about nutrition and body composition and fat loss. Let's talk about that because you need to know where you currently are in order to understand where you need to go and how to develop the best route in order for you to get there, right? So let's just take, for example, someone who wants to lose scale weight. Now, with scale weight, a lot of people are afraid to step on the scale because they hate when they see the number jump up. They think if I jump on the scale and I was totally adherent to a plan and I'm sticking to a diet and I'm eating healthy or I'm eating clean and I see that scale go up, I freak out, right? And my whole thing is like, you need to stop being so afraid of the scale and actually just see it and use it as a metric. It is not the end all be all. It is just a metric. It is a point of data that you are collecting on yourself. And in order to build this better relationship with something, it could be your relationship, it could be with the scale, it could be with food, it could be with a fear. To build a better relationship with anything, you literally don't run away with it. You have to work at it. So why are you running away from the scale if you're afraid to see numbers on that scale? Right? Turning a blind eye and playing this ignorance is bliss, yeah, it'll last for so long until you get to a point to where you can't stand looking at yourself, not even with clothes off in the mirror, but now with clothes on, right? Like stuff don't hide it anymore. You got to become aware. You got to see where you're currently at. So if you're having trouble with the scale because of these up and down fluctuations, you gotta collect the data that each day presents with a measure of a scale weight, and then you can see trends, and that's going to be the key here with scale weight, because there's going to be fluctuations, and your body's going to fluctuate different from other people's bodies. Some people might have more of a linear trend than you do, right? If they're trying to lose weight, it might look more linear in terms of like being on the way down than yours, where yours might jump all over the place, but on like a week to week basis, you're slowly losing. But maybe it's like every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, it seems like you jump up in scale weight. The thing with that is you'll be able to anticipate that stuff. So when it does happen, you're not sitting there, being upset that you jumped up. You kind of knew it was happening. So what does that do? It helps you deal with encountering those fluctuations. And that's the key here. It's you got to face that challenge, not run away from it. And I speak to this about the scale because it's so prevalent in today's society with trying to hit a scale number. And no matter how many times I could say like it's a secondary measure of progress, it doesn't mean anything. Like it's just good data to have. Society will not accept that. And I've accepted that society won't accept that because it's literally the only thing that anyone ever cares about when they're dieting. And it shouldn't be, especially if you're adding muscle tissue, man. Like that weight, that scale weight's gonna be stagnant. Like that's when you gotta you have to take progress photos and do it maybe like on a month to month basis and see how you're progressing on a month to month basis, taking measurements around your waist, your thighs, your arms, that type of stuff. That means so much more than just a number on the scale. Because if you haven't gone to the bathroom in a couple of days, that scale's going up. You can be as adherent as you want to a diet plan. That scale's gonna bump up, and it's going to make you feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. But the more you do it and the more you understand it and the more you subject yourself to this type of stuff, the better you are at handling it. It's like, and this is just, I'll get back on track in a second, but this is like when I have clients, I tell them go on vacations while you're dieting. I need you to encounter these situations because when you encounter them, you learn how to deal with them, you learn how to navigate through them. So I'm using that as an example of saying, hey, when you encounter these fluctuations, let's say you really didn't go to the bathroom, you've been backed up for a couple of days, and you have the data that you've been backed up, you haven't been really going to the bathroom, and the last 3 days your scale went up. Oh, well, now it makes sense to you. Now you're not too upset because you know once you go to the bathroom, you'll be all right. You'll be back to normal, maybe even lower. So you can't run away from this fear of this scale. And like I said the scale as an example because it is literally one of the most prevalent things in our society when it comes to health and fitness. I'll say most people, 75%, if not more, is obsessed with scale weight. Now, when we're talking about, dieting in general, you're gonna get these fad diets that come out, and I'll touch on one in a second, that really say like you shouldn't track things and like you don't need certain things, like you don't need calorie deficits and stuff like that. You're gonna have these people say this stuff to you. But I'm going to try to debunk that right now, right? Because this goes again to like measuring stuff, right? So you have a bunch of these intermittent fasting zealots now that are like, you don't even need a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. Number one, I'm like, what are you even talking about when you say that? Because the only way for your body to lose tissue, which would be scale weight, is a calorie deficit. The only way to gain would be a calorie surplus. So they're like, yeah, you don't even need a calorie deficit. You don't need to track calories. Just eat in an 8 hour window. Like that's the push of these intermittent fasting zealots. Not all people who do intermittent fasting think this, but these are the zealots. These are those people that think like this is the only way to do life is you need to intermittent fast. But what they don't tell you is that in order for you to lose weight, like I just said, they'll tell you all you need to do is eat in an 8 hour window. But in order for you to lose weight with intermittent fasting, is you need a calorie deficit. And what intermittent fasting does, which it's very good at, it's a very good tool to use to help you adhere to a calorie deficit because you're fitting all your calories in an 8 hour window. But here is the problem with not managing or not knowing your calorie intake or if you're in a calorie deficit because how do you know if you're in a calorie deficit to lose weight if you don't even know how many calories you normally eat, number one, and number two, how many calories you're eating in that 8 hour window? Because I'll tell you what, if I'm eating normally, on average, 2,500 calories per day, that's my maintenance. Let's just say, as an example, and I eat 2,500 calories in that 8 hour window, guess what? I am not losing weight. I'm not. I'm eating the same amount of calories. I'm eating at maintenance, right? So it doesn't make sense. And guess what? If I went over those 2,500 calories in that 8 hour window, if I ate 3,000, I'm not losing weight. I'm gaining weight. So for these intermittent fasting zealots to say, you don't need a calorie deficit, you don't need to track your calories. You do, yes. It's a good tool to use to help you adhere to a deficit, but you have to figure out your deficit in the first place. And how do you do that? You need to start measuring. And that's measuring food, yeah. But measuring, I'm also talking about your calorie intake. You need to know where it is. You need to know your maintenance. You need to know what is a deficit. You need to know what's a surplus to help you navigate your way towards your goal. All right. And this is why it's so important to measure and track when you're starting off. Because if you don't know where to go and then you just want to just say, hey, I'm going to just eat whatever I want in an 8 hour window, or I'm going to be mindful, or I'm going to eat clean. You could eat clean food as much as you want, right? In your head, that's what you think. But reality is, if you go to eat clean food, if you're eating all clean food that exceeds your maintenance calories and you go into a surplus, you will gain body fat. Now, it's hard to overeat clean food. Think about eating a ton of broccoli. It's not too appetizing, right? A bunch of dry chicken breasts, not too appetizing. I get it. Compared to, a double cheeseburger and double fries from McDonald's. I mean, that's pretty fucking easy to throw down. Um, so I think it's crucially important that you need to really take it upon yourself to do your due diligence and learn how to track your calories and measure things. Not measuring the food, obviously, yes, but remember, we can't manage stuff we don't measure. So we're measuring our calories so we can manage them and know where to go from there. Okay, so measuring is, when I say that, it's not literally like taking out a tape measure, because it can be, but it's encompassing everything that you're actually trying to manage. You need to at least gather some data on it. That's the measuring aspect of this. But what does it actually do? Well, the main thing that measuring actually does for us is it helps us build awareness. And awareness precedes change. So let me say that. In order to change something, you must become aware of what you need to change, and you only do that by measuring it, which includes things like tracking, right? So if you want to change something, right, you need to first become aware that shit needs to change. And then in order to change it, you have to start measuring to know what to change. So it all comes together, right? And it works the other way as well. Because as you become aware of what you're not doing, that will also force you to start doing what you need to do. Because shit, I'm not doing this. I'm aware that I don't track my food. I'm also aware that I'm not losing scale weight. Okay, now that I know that I'm not doing that and my goal's not happening, I know that I now need to track my calories and track my food to help me lose my scale weight. You see how that works? So, what pops into my mind when I say this, and it almost threw me for a little loop there, um, is the fact that you get people that maybe have been dieting for many, many years, maybe have become really good at it, maybe are even coaches or nutritionists or dietitians. And they're so good at it that they feel like everyone should be on that level. And what they do is they say, you shouldn't track your calories or you shouldn't count your macros because that builds a negative relationship with food. Or because when in their minds, when they were doing it when they were younger, they were so obsessive with it, it caused a sort of obsession. My thing is like you need to have that. You not the obsession, but you need to be able to track calories and count macros, and you need to be able to do that stuff. Because when you say it's a negative or toxic relationship or it builds a negative relationship with food, explain how. Why? Because you learn more about food composition, that's negative. What? Or because you learn the specific nutrient densities of certain foods, how is that negative? Or because you understand portion sizes now, that's building a negative relationship. Or you develop a deeper appreciation for all the intricacies that are involved with dying. Like if you have food awareness, you understand what the food you're consuming is actually offering to your body, and that's a really good thing in my book. So I don't see a negative relationship. I see a negative relationship that becomes really obsessive. But just because it became obsessive with Sally doesn't mean when Sam starts, he's going to become obsessive and OCD with it. It doesn't mean that. And a lot of those people were bodybuilders where they needed to bring their body to a specific point, just like myself. I mean, I'm pretty obsessive with it, especially when I'm in prep. And the reason why is because you have to be. If you're not going to be able to compete. And the whole point, it's called competing. I compete, I'm stepping on stage. You're competing with other people. You have to be the most consistent person to get your body to a point to where it looks the best. So these people say that, right? And they're like, well, it might develop this toxic relationship when it's not going to develop a toxic relationship. You build an understanding, which is what you need in order to go off and live more of an intuitive lifestyle. But that's what they argue. They say, you don't need to do this. It's extremely toxic and it becomes very obsessive. And all you really need to do is intuitively eat. Really? Because intuition is what got you got you to the place where you needed to start the diet in the first place. That's what intuition was. It got you to the point where you're like, I need to diet down. So my thing with all of this is number one, learn first. Learn first, gain as much knowledge as you can, and that's by gathering as much data as possible, finding trends within your own body, and rely on that knowledge to then guide your intuition in the future. Look, I've been doing this since 2010, like extremely diligent with my diet, and then start coaching people, and I still cannot intuitively eat. But see, I'm aware of this, and I know I can't, and I'm okay with that. But the whole point of this short podcast episode is not to put down any ambition for you to one day not be able to measure things out and still look the way you want to look. I'm not doing that at all. What I'm saying is, in order to get there, you need a ton of experience. You need a ton of experience behind your belt in order to do so. And you got to even see if you could get yourself to a position of where you feel extremely comfortable, where you feel like you achieved your goal with doing all of the data collection first, with doing all the measuring and managing, right? And figuring out what works best for you. You need all that data first to see if you can even get your body to that position. And when you do, then it's learning. All right, now you know how to get there, but now how do you hold on to it? How do you make it sustainable? You're going to go back to intuitively eating right after that? It ain't going to work. Your body's going to intuitively tell you to fucking throw some food down your head. Like, that's what it's going to tell you to do. So you need a game plan, right? And you need another game plan out of the diet. And if you don't have these game plans and you rely on intuition, what's going to happen is you're not going to be happy and you're not going to be successful. Then you blame it on the diet and the tracking the macros didn't work for me. If you track your macros and you track your calories and you go into a calorie deficit, and you say it doesn't work for you, you didn't do it right. You didn't track your calories right. You weren't taking everything into account. Maybe there might be some underlying issue, which is not usually the case at all. It's just people don't really understand the full concept of tracking and bringing themselves into a deficit and having to stay there and then knowing when to manipulate, allowing their body to get stagnant, being patient with allowing the body to get acclimated to those calories before they make adjustments. That's usually the case. Sometimes there's a case where maybe the thyroid is working at a lower level than what it should be. And now all that means is that your maintenance calories are lower than what you think they should be. So to give you guys just a quick, like, how to figure out your maintenance calories, honestly, if you haven't been tracking or doing any macros, time to start. Do it for 10 days, 10 to 14 days, without trying to change anything, just so you can get a real sense of what you actually eat, where your calories actually land. And listen, Monday might be all over the place. Tuesday, from Monday to Friday might be all over the place, but we take the average and we kind of see where you're at. And we track our scale weight and we see if are we losing or gaining? Are we staying the same? Because if we're staying the same, we know, hey, we're probably at a maintenance here. And then you go from that maintenance, and then what you do if you want to lose weight is you subtract from there. If you're too low in calories and you're like, wow, I'm hungry and this is my maintenance, then you've been underfeeding yourself and you need to work yourself up. And that's where you need to reach out to professionals to help you do that the right way, like myself. And Dr. Eryn, who analyzes your lab work at the same time. And then, you have your medical consults with her and you have your nutrition with me. Going back to this whole idea of measuring and managing and awareness, they all work together. All right, because in order to change something, you need to be aware that you need to change it. And then once you do become aware, in order to make a change, you have to manage that. And you only do that by measuring. So it all works hand in hand together. I hope this gave you some insight, enlightened you a little bit. And it's okay to start off slow and take your time and really understand, the data that you need to collect, how to get your maintenance calories, how to go into a deficit if you want to lose weight. If you want to add muscle mass, it's about adding it in the right fashion. Don't overlook the forest by focusing on the trees, the individual trees. You want to see the bigger picture here. And the bigger picture, when it comes down to it, if you take a bird's eye view, is really, really looking at, calories being, the foundation, knowing where they are, okay? And then from there, always making sure you're consistent with the protein intake. Have your carbs and fats interchange day to day, or if you like to eat fats a little bit more, then have more fats in your diet than carbs, right? But protein, carbs, and fats make up your calories. So you're consistent with your protein, have your fat and calories, make up the rest to hit those daily calories. And if you want to gain muscle, you go in a little bit of a surplus. I would normally say that's probably for performance, so you're going to use more carbohydrates than fats there, until you get to a point where eating becomes an issue. Then you want to add like less voluminous foods like oils to help drive calories up without adding so much volume. But if you want to go the other direction, you want to lose scale weight, you want to lose body fat, you want to change your body composition that way, then you need to go into a deficit. And if you ever need help with any of this, you can just reach out to us on social media, or you could shoot us an email. Just go to our website, balancedbodies.io, and we'll make sure that we answer all your questions, because we're here to help. We're here to help the right way. We're not these zealots that say you don't need to calorie count and just eat in an 8-hour window and you'll lose body fat. It doesn't work like that. You need a deficit. So, that being said, I appreciate you all the time, and I will talk to you later.
So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.